Hello everyone and welcome back to our training in Windows Server Administration. In the previous video, we had looked at how to download and install the resources required to set up a virtual environment needed for our training purposes. So in this video, we will be looking at some of the basic server configurations and we'll be establishing connections to create our network. We will also be installing roles, namely DNS and Active Directory, to promote our server to act as a domain controller, and we'll test our client server based network by creating a user and trying to log in to the domain using a client PC. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. So we happen to have both our machines ready and working. So the very first things we are going to do is to have a look at the basic server environment, and I happen to have my server manager console open. And in case you're wondering how to start up, by default the server manager console will automatically start up, but in case it hasn't, you'll find it under the Windows panel. And for that matter, if you do not want server manager to open by default, you can always take care of it by clicking on manage and clicking on the server manager properties. And in case you do not want server manager to automatically open at the logon, you need to check particular option and click OK. Now quick look at our server. Click on the local server and we have our basic settings provided to us based on our installation. So our computer name is Windows, provided by the server itself, and if we want to change, we can always click on this and change the computer name. Let's change it to training server and on OK, and that is going to change the server name. I'm going to close that and I'll restart this later. On the same note, if we want our remote desktop to be enabled, we can always click on that and we will click on the allow remote connections to this particular computer in case we need to access the server from a decentralized location. So there's rules that we will need to configure to apply this as well. So I will leave this as to allow remote connections to this computer, and I'll click on apply and click OK. Now we are going to have a look at the Ethernet adapter, and we are going to be providing a static IP. So before we do that, let's explore some other options that are provided. In case you need to download and update or check the status of your server, you can always click on this particular link and it's going to take you to the Windows update, and it will show you that your Windows is updated to whichever version that is there. And in my case at the moment, this was last checked and it needs to update itself, so I will click on install now, but I'm going to skip that step. Also, if you need to set up your time zone, for instance in this particular case this time zone is US and Canada, you feel like changing it to your current time zone, so we are based in Fiji and we can always change our time zone by clicking on that and locating our own. There we go, and click OK. For any changes to take place, we will need to refresh and you can see that our time zone has been updated. Moving on to our basic housekeeping, if we need to give any static IP, we can click here to enable the or to access the adapter, or we can simply click on the network settings and move from there to the network connections. So we're going to try to establish a connection between our server and our client PC, which we have installed as Windows 11. For that, we will need to provide a static IP to both, and we will need to take care of the firewall because we do not have firewall policies at the moment to control the connection. So I'm going to provide a static IP to both, and for that I'm going to work on the IP version 4. I'm going to click on properties, and by default it is on the obtain IP address automatically. So this is for our DHCP, and we will have a look at how to install DHCP and work with DHCP in our videos later. So for now I'm going to provide IP address manually. Subnet mask is already picked up, and we are going to promote this server to act as a domain controller. So I'm going to provide the same IP address and I will click OK and close this. At the same time, we want to also have a look at the firewall status. So I'm going to click on the network sharing and Windows firewall. So by default, all the firewall is switched on, and I'm going to temporarily switch this off. Okay, so I'm going to close this particular portal up. Temporarily, I'm going to switch to our client PC and we will make the same adjustments or provide the IP address async. So I'm going to switch to our client PC and we are going to provide a static IP in this particular PC as well, and we'll try to establish a connection. So I'm going to click on my network and internet settings to our Ethernet, and we are going to change the IP assignment for this. So by default, again, it is set to DHCP, and I'm going to change this to manual IPv4, and I'm going to provide a static IP and .2. In this particular case, subnet mask needs to be the same as the one in our server, and the preferred DNS, we are going to promote our server to act as a domain controller. So I'm going to provide the IP address of the server here, and we'll click on save. Now at the same time, we are going to also change the firewall setting to switch our firewall off. So on a domain network, I'll switch this off, and we'll click yes, and we'll be doing the same for the other connections. Before we try to establish this particular connection by pinging and verifying, we will also need to make one more change to our virtual box, whereby we are going to change the network setting. Now think of this, on a physical environment, we will need to have a switch to connect two or more computers. In this particular case, we have two computers, and for us to connect this, we will need a virtual switch. In this case, that's the best way I can explain, and to take care of that, we are going to make a few settings on our network. So for Windows 22 machine that we have created, by clicking on the settings, we will go to the network. By default, it is on network address translation. I'm going to change it to any one of the different adapters. So we'll work with the bridge adapter, and we will have to have the same changes to be applied to the other machine that we have created as well. We'll be doing the same thing for the other machine, clicking on net, and we'll click on allow all and click OK. Now if we go back to our machines, and we can open our command prompt, and we are going to ping the IP addresses to check if it is working. So we'll first ping this local computer, and we're getting a reply okay, and let us see if we are getting a reply from the client computer as well. So we're getting a reply from the client computer which shows that the outgoing communication is okay. Here we'll have a similar check on the client PC by running our command prompt and trying to ping the server, in this particular case, which is 10.10.10.1, and there we go. So having provided a static IP to both the computers manually and setting up our network, we have successfully set up a network which is able to communicate with each other. We are going to move forward, and we will try to promote this particular server to act as a domain controller, and for that we will need to configure this local server by adding roles and features. For that, we will need to click on add roles and features, and this time around we are going to add roles, our Active Directory as well as our DNS. So we'll simply click on next. We will leave it to our role base. At the moment we do not have any computers from where we are remotely logging in, so we are going to click on next. This is the server that we are working on. Clicking next to it, we will need the DNS server, so we'll click on that, add features, and we are also going to look at the Active Directory domain services. We'll click on add and next. So if you want, you can check this in case the machine needs to restart. In our case, it will notify us if it needs to, but if you want, you can always check that up. And this is a confirmation of the services, so click on install, and it's starting to install the roles. So once the roles are installed, it will restart, and then it will provide us with the option to promote our server to act as a domain controller in this particular case, because we have installed the DNS role. For the other role, we are going to have a look at in our upcoming videos. Okay, so the roles have been successfully added, and the post deployment of these roles, we will need to click on the notification panel, promote a domain controller by clicking on the notification and this particular link. We are going to click on the add new forest at the moment, since we do not happen to have a domain controller for the existing domain, nor do we happen to have any existing forest where we are going to add a new domain. So the only option that we're left with is to create a new forest, and we can choose a domain name. You can choose a domain name based on your organization or any particular domain name that is reasonable. So I'm going to rename it as traininglab.local. You can also give other names with extensions .com, etc. So traininglab.local is the domain that we have selected in our case. I'm going to click on next, which is going to provide us options with the domain controller and the forest functional levels, as well as the need to create a password for our domain controller services. So we happen to have the functional level into a new forest, so it's going to, we can always change this to any particular level that we want. This you can think of as a compatibility issue with the previous versions. So I'm going to leave it as Seva 2016, which is the latest of the levels, and I'm going to create a password. Simply click on next. We're not going to create a delegation, so we are going to explore the additional options that it's going to provide to us. We're going to pick up the NetBIOS name which we have provided. In our case, it's the training lab. There we go. And in the next dialog box is going to provide us with the paths for our syslog database that it has created. If you need, you can always change it. However, let's just leave it to the Windows directory in our C drive. We're going to review the options based on the configurations that we are applying, and after which the server is going to do a prerequisites check to see if all the requirements are met by our system before progressing to the installation of the role. So all the prerequisite checks have been passed successfully. We have been provided with a few warnings, which is okay, and we can ignore all these warnings for now and simply click on install to install the features that we are. Okay, after the installation, the computer or our server might want to restart, so we're going to click on that and allow the machine to restart its services. As we can see, now that we are going to log in, this particular server has been promoted to a domain, and the domain name that we have chosen was traininglab.local. So I'm going to sign in based on the password that I have provided, and a quick look at our local server. We will notice that the work group has changed to a domain, and it's going to, and the domain that we have chosen is traininglab.local. Okay, the next step that we want to do is to create a user and to be able to verify by trying to log in to this particular client server network that we are trying to design. Before we do that, we can always come back and change this work group into, we can always change this particular client from work group and promote this to a domain as well. So for that, we are going to our PC properties, and we are simply going to click on the domain or work group and change this particular computer from the work group that it is to the to become a member of the domain that we have chosen, which is the traininglab.local. Simply click OK. It's going to need the credentials, so typing administrator, or might as well we can type and the password, and it's going to notify us. Okay, so there has been a change. We have made this particular computer to become the member of the domain, and we have a welcome notification that this particular computer is now a member of the traininglab.local domain. So I'm just going to click OK, and it will ask me to restart this computer so the changes can take place. I'll click OK and wait for restart to take place. In the meantime, now, and I'm going to create a user in our server so that we are able to log in. Although we will be able to log into this machine using the administrator privileges that we happen to have in the server, but let's just go ahead and create a user. So for that, I'm going to go to tools and create and select my Active Directory users and computers. In the next and upcoming videos, we will see how to create organizational units, but for now, we are simply going to create a user by right clicking, creating new, and create a user. So I'm going to give this name Ben Ryan. So the full name becomes Ben Ryan, and the logon we can provide this as ben.ryan at traininglab.local. So this is going to be the user logon. I'm going to click next, and we are required to provide a password. So I'm going to give a password Ben Ryan. And a quick look at the options that we have provided. The user must change password at the next login. So if I leave this checked on, as soon as I log in using Ben Ryan, it's going to notify me to change the password. If I check this off, it's going to ignore that, and the user cannot change password, so I'm not going to check on that. I would want to change a password as soon as I log in as Ben Ryan. So we are going to have a look at the password policies once we are installing the policies. So for now, I'm just simply going to click next and click on finish. So we have created a user. I'm going to leave this here as yet, and I'm going to log into my client. So this time around, I'm going to move on to the domain, and we can see that the training log domain has been created. I'm going to simply click on ben.ryan and the password that you had selected, and click on next. There, it's able to pick it up, and the user's password must be changed before we sign in based on the option that we had left checked on. So I'm going to click OK. So the new password is something that Ben Ryan can set for himself. In that case, it's me for now, and click OK. So it's going to change. The password has been changed, and if I click OK, then we have been able to successfully log into the particular domain as Ben Ryan in this particular case, because we had created that as a user. So we have accomplished what we were trying to do at the beginning of this particular video. We were trying to set up a network and promote our server to act as a domain controller, and we were also set to test by creating a client server based network and be able to log into the domain using a client PC and a user. So in the upcoming video, we are going to see how we are going to create organizational units as well as other server roles such as DHCP. If we do a recap, we had provided the static IP for our client and our server. Once we create a DHCP pool, we can revert to the obtaining IP addresses automatically for the clients, which is going to access Seva, and the Seva is going to automatically assign IP addresses based on the availability from the pool that we'll create as far as the IP addresses are concerned, which is going to come up in our next video. Okay, so we'll see you in the next video.